13th. The vlog I recorded yesterday is going live in a couple of hours. It's a little bit after 7. Just chilling here. Got some morning chores done. Watched Inside Number 23's vlog day 12. I love watching her vlogs. If you don't watch Katie, aka Miss Lavelli's vlogs or podcast or any of her videos, you really should. She's just lovely. Today is very gray, kind of foggy, and it's shaping up. I'm really hoping it's going to be a really kind of a low-key day. I have some tidying up to do here around the house that we're staying in, because hopefully our bathroom is going to be done by Friday so we can move back. So I've got a bit of tidying up to do because it's like Hurricane Ernest here, which is fine, but I thought I would revisit my list of things I was thinking about at the beginning of October, things that I wanted to vlog about. And one of the things on the list was my story about being gluten-free. Oh, sorry. My coffee was in the way of the tractors. How dare I? So, if you watch the podcast, you've heard me talk about it before, that I have celiac disease, so I eat gluten-free. And I had written on my list of ideas to vlog about, to tell my story about going gluten-free, but I kind of decided to modify that idea a little bit, because my personal story about going gluten-free is kind of a TMI medical story, and I kind of feel like it's a personal story that you have to ask specifically to hear. So, I'm not going to do my whole going gluten-free story, and I'm not going to do my whole rant about gluten-free in general. Instead, I'm going to tell 3 funny stories about my experience being gluten-free. So I have been gluten-free since August of 2012. No, August of 2013. Yeah, 2013, a year and 2 months after I was married. So I was diagnosed, and I will kind of tell these stories chronologically. First story, after I was diagnosed with celiac, my GI specialist sent me to a dietitian. And the dietitian was going to, help me plan out some meals and things, 'cause it's all new to me. So the first thing she said was, she's like, all right, bad news first. I was like, okay. She's like, no beer. And I was like, all right. And she kind of like sat there like waiting to see how I reacted. I didn't really react. I was like, that's fine. I don't really like beer that much anyways. Like, I didn't really care. And she just kind of like looked relieved at me. She's like, you would not believe how many people have cussed me out because of that. I was like, I guess we're in Wisconsin. And so I was asking her more about it. I was like, do people really get that upset about it? She's like, oh yes. Oh yes, very upset. I have people who stick to a strict gluten-free diet except for beer. I was like, so does that work for them? She's like, no, they still get sick. Don't worry, there are gluten-free beers, but they don't taste very good. After that, when we'd go out with friends or we'd be talking to someone, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm gluten-free, and they'd be like, oh, can you have beer? Not cheese, not anything else. Beer. Funny story number 2. I had been diagnosed for quite a while. I was very comfortable. I knew what I could and couldn't eat. And I still do a lot of research before I go out to a place, because I don't want to get sick. I like going out to eat. I don't want to stop entirely, and we don't go out a ton. But, I want to know that the place I'm going is going to be worth it, that it's not like I can just have a salad with no croutons, like, I want to know they have a lot of offerings. I knew at the places that I could go what I could get. Pretty solid. I would still ask. I still do. Like, even if I'm really sure, I still ask just in case something's changed and I didn't get the memo. So, I was going to Jimmy John's with a friend. Believe it or not, Jimmy John's does have gluten-free things. Now, disclaimer, I haven't gotten sick at Jimmy John's. I've only been there maybe 3 times since I've been diagnosed, and I've never gotten sick from cross-contamination or whatever. But that's not to say that you won't. So whatever. Just don't sue me if you get sick there. So, I went in with a friend. This was the first time I'd been there. I'd done my research. I knew what I could have. And I asked the guy at the counter. And they weren't busy. That's another thing, too. If they're really busy, I get kind of wary of any restaurant going in and asking things because they might not be fully thinking about it. They weren't busy, so I was asking my questions. And the guy at the counter, he was very nice and answered tons of questions. I was really happy to answer all my questions. And he said, all of our meats are gluten-free, because some deli meats aren't. Surprise. It's like, all our meats are gluten-free. I was very confident, and I had read that online, so I was confident too. And then he said, the only thing I think besides the bread that you can't have is the cheese. And I was like, oh, because I haven't really come across a cheese that wasn't gluten-free. So I was like, okay, I'm just curious, why can't I have your cheeses? What, are they processed with gluten? What? Do you dust them with flour before you cut them? I was really confused. So he was like, oh, no, if you're gluten-free, you can't eat cheese. And he wasn't rude. He was very confident. And he was very polite. But he was very wrong. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, anyone who eats gluten-free can't eat cheese. And I was like, okay. I was like, actually, no, I don't think that's true. And he's like, no, it is. I have a friend who's gluten-free, and she doesn't eat cheese. And I was like, okay. And then he kind of thought for a second. He's like, but she's also vegan. I had the cheese, and I didn't get sick. And I explained to him, I was like, her cheese avoidance might not necessarily be because she's gluten-free. She could have other life choices, like being vegan, that might play into it. And he was like, oh, yeah, maybe you're right. I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I am. Third funny story. This one, I think I'm gonna do a sad story and then kind of a happy one. So this is like a bad gluten-free experience. Jason's Deli is a deli franchise that they do awesome gluten-free stuff. I've been there many times. I've never gotten sick. Again, don't take my word for it. Always do your own research, blah, 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 whatever. And they have pretty good cross-contamination practices. To me, some people are really strict. And whenever I go in, even if I've done my research, I always ask to make sure, and I always tip, like, ridiculously well. I always tip really well if I've done, a really specific finicky order, just because you'll see in the rest of the story. So I had been into Jason's Deli a few times, and no problems. I love their food, great stuff. And I was waiting in line. They were busy, but I felt confident, having eaten there before, that it wasn't going to be an issue, that they were busy. So I was in a long line, and there's a woman in front of me, and she goes up to the counter, and she starts placing her order, and it's for a gluten-free sandwich. And I, automatically when I hear gluten-free, I kind of perk up and listen. And this woman is really rude. It really doesn't seem to me like there's any reason for the rudeness. And she's, snapping on her when the girl can't answer her questions right away. And the girl is trying to be very accurate, and she's looking at their allergen guide to make sure that she's giving this woman correct information, and the woman is just yelling at her, laying into her, because she doesn't know off the top of her head exactly what she's asking, and she's just really being mean, and she stands like, okay, so if you've never been to Jason's Deli, they've got like kind of a line where you can watch your stuff being made, and she is like leaning over the glass, like telling people how to make her sandwich and yelling at them very rudely about it. And this all went on, and I could see kind of the cooks and the workers all exchanging looks like, oh, another one of these. So I actually left because I didn't want to place an order right after that. It's people like that that, you know, really give people who have an actual medical condition a bad name, because I don't know if she had a medical condition or not, but the way she was acting, I would have spit in her food. I don't think Jason's Deli did that. But I personally, she was so rude, I would have been very tempted to tell her what I was thinking. I was, even just being a customer, I was really tempted to be like, excuse me, ma'am, I have a medical condition that requires me to eat gluten-free, and you are giving us a very bad name. And that happens a lot. So that was kind of like, I did leave, just because I was so almost embarrassed to have to place a special order after that woman, and there's no reason for me to have felt like that. That was just my own personal anxieties. So now a happy gluten-free story. So you're getting 4 for the price of 3 today. All right, story number 4, bonus story. One of the safest types of food for me to eat that I've found personally is Mexican food. A lot of like authentic Mexican food is just by nature gluten-free. And it's pretty easy to determine what dishes might be at risk for having flour added to them. And you can talk to the cook, you can talk to the workers, and they are usually pretty knowledgeable. I have my favorite Mexican place in La Crosse is Iguana's Street Cafe. If you're ever in La Crosse, oh my gosh, go there. The place doesn't look anything super duper special, but oh, best tacos. Spicy shrimp tacos on corn tortillas is my jam. So I was going out with some friends to a Mexican restaurant that I hadn't been to since I'd been diagnosed, and I knew kind of what dishes to look out for just from being in Mexican restaurants before. And I know some Spanish, so I figured if the wait staff, because we were in an area with a really big Hispanic population, if the wait staff couldn't speak English super well or were confused by what I was asking, I'd just speak Spanish, which I did. And I asked for, I asked if the dish was sin gluten, without gluten. And the guy kind of looked at me and was like, no entiendo. I'm like, I don't get it. So I asked a different way. I said libre de trigo, which I had looked up before. He immediately understood and just like went into this whole explanation in Spanish of the menu to me about what I could order and how they could do special things for me and how it was no problem, and did I want the cook to come out and like all this stuff. And I was like, no, it's fine. If you are confident, I trust you, and had no issues. And I was really happy that both language, which I love the Spanish language, I love languages in general, that I was able to communicate my needs with this guy, and that also he was so willing and so friendly and able to help out. Those are my fun gluten-free stories. I have a lot of other whiny, complainy gluten-free stories, like things that taste like hockey pucks, things that taste worse than hockey pucks. So those are just some silly stories that I've had since being gluten-free. Ernest is playing happily. The sun is trying to come out. I got some great videos yesterday of a beautiful drive along the Mississippi. So I think I'm gonna call it quits, finish my now cold coffee, knit a little bit, then try to clean up. Have a great day!